if you would, please welcome our friend back home, Dr. Robin Hines.
Thanks, Lou. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be home. I can promise you this. It's like a reunion. I see Coach Studdard sitting over there, right there. My backside's still a little sore. That scares me. And I get to talk a little bit about Coach Hughes, who I have an unbelievable amount of respect for. But I may be 65 years old, but there's a little bit of that fear left in me. I want to make sure that I'm doing it right because it still scares me a little bit. And my phone will ring sometimes and I'll see Coach Hughes on there and my heart still goes up into my throat just a little bit. And it's good to see 73 and 74 teams back. You know, some of my friends, some of my teammates, and all my heroes. So it's good. It's great to always see when we do something like this. But I do think it's appropriate that you have Coach Hughes here to kick off this United Way deal. Because what the United Way does is just bring resources across your local community and all that. And Coach Hughes, for many, many years, has been pouring into the communities that he serves. Now, I believe he's the best to have ever done coaching. You know, that's my opinion. And the impact that he's had on the communities that he served is just absolutely incredible. And again, it's great to see so many of the players here today. And we are all proud to have played for him. And we've carried those life lessons that he's taught us throughout our lives as well. Now, a few things about Coach Hughes. He was a head coach here at Thomasville from 70 to 82, where his teams won 2 region titles, 2 state titles, 1 national title, and his overall record was 107, 34, and 2. Now, I would also like to note, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for most of those years, Coach, I believe we played up in classification. You know, we were playing schools that were much larger than Thomasville, but you guys didn't let that bother you a bit. You know, I'm certainly proud of that as well. In 1983, he moved on to Colquitt County, where his teams were 140, 68 and 2, with 4 region titles and a state title. In 30 years as a head coach, he was 247 wins, 102 losses, 4 ties with 6 region championships, 3 state championships, and a national championship. He's the all-time leader in wins in both Thomasville and Colquitt County. Now, I saw Coach DeLay in here somewhere earlier.
He had to go.
He did.
He's got a game Friday night.
I still have hope that he will beat that record. We're certainly pulling for him to do that. He does a great job. So anyway, Coach Hughes' teams were 24 and 8 in state playoffs. And one of my favorite stats of coaches is that he was 9 and 1 versus Valdosta from 93 to 99. He led Colquitt County to the state playoffs in each of his final 9 seasons. He was Thomas County's Man of the Year in 1974, and that was absolutely appropriate. He's been inducted into the Thomas County Hall of Fame, the Moultrie Colquitt County Hall of Fame, the Georgia Athletic Coaches Association Hall of Fame, and the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame. And if I had a Hall of Fame, he'd be in that one too. In 2024, the football field at Veterans Memorial Stadium was named in his honor. Again, very appropriate. He was also a longtime member of the GHSA Executive Committee. And I can tell you that's like herding cats. And one thing about this, and Coach, I don't know if this is true, but it's certainly folklore around the GHSA office. There was one time that Coach Hughes put forth a proposal and then talked about it, and then voted against it. I think it's true. And also, just very quickly, I want to take the liberty to tell a couple of personal stories about Coach Hughes. This is what kind of makes me a little nervous. But Coach he is a funny guy and he has a good sense of humor, right, Coach? You know, we were talking about those life lessons that he's instilled in all of us that played for him, that sort of thing. And one of those things that I remember specifically was attention to detail. He really paid attention to detail. I'm going to talk about shoestrings. We got our shoes, our coaching shoes one time, and I was stringing up my thing, and he fussed at me because my shoestrings were twisted. They had to be lined up perfectly. Coach, that's the truth. That is attention to detail. And he always was going to be prepared, and he was always going to have a plan to win. Now, some of it was overkill. I'm just going to tell you, I can remember one time, one Sunday afternoon, you know, the way he did, he traded the last 3 films. We were getting ready to play lounge at that time. We started, you know, marking how many times we watched the play. And we watched lounge run the same toss sweep 24 times in a row. I think we had it down because about how they were going to block it. And then finally, he gave us opportunities to grow professionally. There's no question. And we were in Moultrie at the time, and Duke Harris, who was our team doctor, a great guy, had this program where he taught, like, you know, athletic training and that sort of thing. And Coach Hughes picked me to go be part of that program. So what my job was to tape ankles, do that, evaluate injuries and things like that. I was really proud that he chose for me to do that. We're at practice one day, and if a kid got hurt or something, they would send him over to me and, you know, to my group and all that stuff, and I would evaluate that injury and see what it is that we need to do. Well, the defensive back coach sent a kid named Greg Ward. I don't know if you remember Greg Ward or not. But Greg came over and said, "What's wrong, Greg?" He said, "My shoulder's hurt. Shoulder." I go in there and I check his AC joint and make sure he's not, you know, separated or anything like that. I said, "Oh, you just took a lick. Get back in there and play." Well, we finished the practice. We did what we needed to do. And that night about 9:30, the phone rang. It was Coach Hughes. He said, "You missed bad on Ward. Broken humerus." That is a truth. But anyway, education-based sports are designed to provide life lessons for the young people who participate in them. And student athletes learn those lessons such as how to lead, how to follow, how to plan, how to execute that plan, how to be a part of a team. And no one was a better teacher than Coach Hughes. Sorry. But personally, my career is a direct result of his influence. I went into education because I wanted to be like him. And I wanted to impact the lives of young people the way he impacted mine. To this day, he's the guy I turn to in difficult times for counsel. Be it trying to open up the state after COVID. You know, he's the guy I need to talk to. You know, how do we do that? How do we do it? Return to play, or any type of issue with the high school association that was very difficult to deal with. And there are many difficult situations when you're in that job, that's for sure. But it gives me great pleasure to introduce my boss, my friend, my mentor, and my coach, Dr. Jim Hughes.
Because of Robin Hines and his work with the Georgia High School Association, Georgia is #1 in the country in terms of safety procedures for athletes. #1 in the country. We ought to be indebted to Robin for his service and for helping to get us to that point. I don't know much about prayers. Well, I told the lady, she touched every base. That might be the best indication I've ever heard. And Mike Gammons be careful now, because she said the things we did, we should not have done. And she also said the things we didn't do that we should have done. She got us coming and going. I'm delighted to be here today. Let me introduce some folks to you that I invited to come to, who were involved in the things we'll be talking about today. But 50 years ago, we had a 1974 football team. We celebrated that team last year. This year is the 55th anniversary of the 1970 process, where we put the schools together, where we eliminated the dual school system. Now we're going to be talking about some of that history and some of the people who were involved in that history. And it may lose some of you, because some of the things I'll talk about happened before you were even born. There's got to be a little bit of a factor for that. Anyway, this table over here in the corner, I invited Jackie Bryant. Many of you know Coach James Bryant. Jackie couldn't be here, but Deborah, her daughter, is. Jerry Studdard, one of the speakers indicated this. Jerry Studdard has paddled the fanny of practically anybody who's been through the Thomas City school system in the last 30, 40 years. If he missed you, Andy Jones got you. Anyway, Jerry Studdard, who was an assistant principal, teacher, coach, he did it all. Bill Rainey was our guidance counselor for a while, coached tennis, and was the voice of the Bulldogs from a PA standpoint for years and years. Don Hancock was our offensive coordinator in '74. Don has state championship rings from Bainbridge, Cairo, and at least 2 from Thomasville. He has worn Highway 84 out. Mike Singletary is there. He's an outlier. He went to the wrong school, but he's got a long history with me, and I'm glad he's here today. Robin Hines' wife, Kim, is there. Kim, we're delighted you're here. And my wife, Lillian, our coaching. Football coaches have an expression for it. When an ordinary kind of looking guy, Robin, myself, winds up with a really attractive wife. My friends say we outkicked our coverage. Well, I freely admit to that. We're going to be talking today about the 73 and 74 teams. We're going to be talking about the elimination of the dual school system and the way we got there. I came to Thomasville in 1966. I was an assistant coach here 4 years. The last 2 of those years, our football team was 10-2, played in the semifinals of the state, played for the South Georgia Championship against one year St. Pius of Atlanta and the other year North Springs of Atlanta. At the same time that we were experiencing success at Thomasville High School, Coach James Bryant was winning a state championship at Douglas in the classification that Douglas played in. So we had some pretty good programs going. I got the job in December of 1969. They named me head coach at Thomasville High School. Lee Forehand left to go to graduate school. I was the 6th head football coach at Thomasville High School. We knew that within the next few years, we would put the high schools together, the Thomasville High School and Douglas. In January of 1970, Coach Bryant and I met with the school superintendent, and he announced to us that we would put the schools together that year, fall of '70. Neither of us knew that would be the case. He announced that Coach Hughes would be the head coach, and asked Coach Bryant if that was acceptable. Coach Bryant said it was. We talked for a little bit about spring practice, and we went our way. When I got to the parking lot, I sat in the car for a little while, and I thought, if James Bryant had been a different kind of person, and if he had chosen to dispute that assignment, he being a veteran head coach, and I had never been a head coach, then my career might have turned out very differently. I could not have asked for anybody to serve me or Thomasville High School any better in the years that we worked together. We put together a spring practice in March. It worked well. We had no fights. We had nobody quitting. We had lots of spectators, and lots of people came to practice every afternoon to see if we could do this thing. I think the most important thing that perhaps happened the first time we got all of the coaches together and all of the players together and introduced ourselves to them, James Bryant announced that he was not there to coach black kids. He was there to coach football players. And that was the way we approached it, and it worked well. Through those early years, we didn't have a lot of conversation, as I recall, about integration. We talked about behavior. We talked about teamwork. The players realized very quickly that their success on Friday night very much helped the community accept the process of integration. I've always thought it was unfair that for one of the most significant social activities of our lifetimes, the responsibility for success or failure rested on the shoulders of school kids and classroom teachers. I had increasingly respect for the Douglas faculty, students, alumni, who as gracefully as possible surrendered their traditions and their history. And we tried to teach, we did teach, that we needed to respect the game, respect the opponent. I've never thought that hate was a very good motivator. I never thought revenge was a very good motivator. We taught to respect the officials. We did not accept celebration, chest thumping, ball spiking behaviors. We expected our folks, if they scored, to find an official and hand the ball to them. The most important thing we taught was how a player should respond to coaching, how to respond to criticism. We coached hard, but we hugged their necks and we told them we loved them. I can hear that 73 and 74 table now. They're saying, I remember about the heart. I don't remember about that love. And Robin, it might be illegal now, but we scrimmaged a lot. we scrimmaged a lot because that's what the players wanted to do, probably more than is allowed now. We were in pads Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and oftentimes we scrimmaged all 3 days. After our squads got bigger and bigger, we would try to scrimmage our number ones against our number twos. Players never liked that. Our guys wanted to go the best against the best, and they wanted to do it every day if we would. It probably was too much. There was one characteristic, and I wish Jonathan was still here, one characteristic about our region, and I never coached at any other region than Region 1. We were taught that you don't bitch about the score. I think this is a carryover from Coach Wright Pagemore, who whipped a lot of people pretty bad. But I was taught as a young coach, don't fuss about it. If they get you bad, you got to get a little better, and then you get somebody else. I happened to be down on the field to congratulate Coach Nick Hatter one night after a Valdosta win against a team from outside our region. And Valdosta had scored a lot of points. And that coach was objecting to Coach Hatter, this was after the game, about running up the score. And Coach Hatter, I'll never forget, Coach Hatter said, he said, I thought it was your job to keep us from scoring. I thought he answered it about the only way you could answer. During this period of time, we had, and I think Thomasville is an unusual community, we had very strong school system and community support. We had great leadership. We had Charlie McDaniel, who later became the state student superintendent. We had Milton Calloway, who served this community and the school system remarkably well for years and years. I remember that a school board president here, Tom Vann, later became president of the state school board. Milton Garner, and many of you will remember, opened the doors of the First Baptist Church to our football team. I've often wondered what that cost him in terms of support in the church community. But it didn't matter to Reverend Gardner, who was as competitive a Bulldog supporter as I have ever seen anywhere. He made sure that our football team, black, white, was invited to his church. Reverend Mullis did the same sort of thing with the minority coaches. I can't tell you the number of Sunday nights that we might wind up in a smaller black church somewhere in Thomasville with potluck dinners, all because of the football team. On a building level, we begin to experience continuing success at working this process under the leadership of Principal Jay Thornton and Assistant Principal Jerry Stutter. And I've got to mention, we had great leadership with our touchdown club. Guys like Nick Cavacles, Grayson Shiver, Carlton Parrish, Charlie Bean, they made sure that we had the resources that we needed. I want to talk about the two championship games for just a minute. 1973 first. And by the way, at that time, all games were region games. Only one team advanced in the playoffs. And most years, you had to go through Valdosta to do that. We were pretty good in 70. pretty good in 71. We came close in 72. Moultrie won the region championship. We had them 10-0 at halftime and could not hold it. Ray Goff was a little too strong for us. But our breakthrough came in 73. We won 13 football games. 9 of them were shutouts. You don't see 6-0 scores much anymore. We beat Valdosta 6-0. Later on, we beat Central Macon 6-0. Won the championship at 13-0. Jerry Raines, by the way, was our defensive coordinator during that particular season. And we wound up, and by the way, supposedly one other team has had more shutouts in a season than we did that year, supposedly. Americus is supposed to have had 10 shutouts one year. I'm an old Cordele guy. I grew up across the river from Americus. I didn't trust them in high school. I don't trust them now. I seriously question. But they say 10. I'm really proud of our 9. We wound up playing in the state championship against Wheeler, a Cobb County school, and we played in Atlanta. It was cold. I think it snowed that day. We wound up winning the game 40-35. It was a little closer than that. It was 40-20 with 5 minutes to play. And we turned the ball over twice. They scored twice. 40-35. We had 300 plus yards rushing. We had 0 yards passing. David Mitchell was our quarterback. And I love David Mitchell. But he couldn't throw the football. I will say this, we were totally incapable of throwing and catching the football. We couldn't do it in practice. We couldn't do it in the warm-up. And we certainly couldn't do it in the game. We threw the football 3 times in that ball game. 2 were intercepted. The coaching staff threatened me with bodily harm if we tried to throw the football any more than we did. I remember at least 3 occasions William Andrews broke a long run for a touchdown. And at least 3 times those runs were called back. So we'd take William out, give him a blow, put Al Fan in, and Al Fan scored on a long run. We had great capabilities when it came to rushing the football. We just couldn't throw it. The problem, however, was the conduct of the Wheeler players. We don't want to get Lillian started. She's still mad about it. When we went out for the warm-up, our end of the field was nearest the dressing room. We were already spread out, stretching, loosening up, and the Wheeler team ran through our team warm-up and started the trash talk. Now, I'm not talking about a YMCA pickup basketball game. This wasn't that kind of trash. And I'm not talking about church league softball. This was serious, nasty, racist, profane trash. Our players were called everything you can imagine them being called. I see a few heads nodding over there. It was a horribly officiated football game. At least 2 of the Wheeler players were ejected. They came back in the game. It was a very poor situation. I spent most of the night trying to restrain Thomas Graham. Most of you know Thomas pretty difficult. I well remember Coach Bryant and Coach Morris Williams physically restraining at least one of our defensive ends who was so incensed at what was being said and done that he wanted to retaliate. Nobody ever did. Nobody ever did. We played on Saturday night. We won. We stayed overnight, which is a mistake, but I never did that again. But came home Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, I got a call from an Atlanta sports writer, and I described the football game we had played the night before. Silly me. I thought I knew what off the record. But when I picked up the Atlanta newspaper the next morning, and the Atlanta newspaper was still, that's how long ago this was, it was still delivered. Those headlines in the paper were exactly what I had told them, which was exactly what had happened. We were cursed, we were abused, we were spat on. My bosses were not very happy with me, and justifiably so. If I had known he was going to print that discussion, I wouldn't have talked to him. In any event, the Georgia High School Association asked us to come to Thomaston and explain ourselves. By the time my bosses talked to enough players to understand that what I described was actually what had happened, then my principal, Jay Thornton, he put together a defense for us, and we took it to Thomaston, and we were exonerated. I never thought they penalized the group they should have, which was the football officials. But in any event, we came clean. I was extremely proud of our football team and some of our fans, because during that game, they never lost composure, they remained disciplined, they were not intimidated. The point, a lot of players, a lot of coaches, a lot of teams never get to participate in a championship game. My feeling is that when you get to that point, that ought to be the penultimate situation. That ought to be as good as it gets. And you ought to be able to just play football, celebrate the winner, go on about your business. We were not able to do that because of the conduct of our opponents. I did serve on the Georgia High School Association Executive Committee for 20 years. And the coach of that team wound up serving on a committee at the same time, or part of the same time. We didn't hang out. I did not offer to buy him a beer. All I did was make sure that Lillian didn't find out that he was still there. Okay. The next year, we wind up in the state championship again, 12-1 this time. Our score with Valdosta was 40-0. And by the way, 73 was the first year that we played a season with the stadium in the configuration that it is now. Before 73, the home side was the Scott School side. 73, we moved over to the chairback seats and dedicated the stadium with that team. In 74, we wound up playing Lakeside of Atlanta, coached by Wayman Creel. Wayman Creel was the first high school coach in the state of Georgia to win 300 games. I think he won more like 400 before he was through. He was an excellent coach. We wound up winning the game 26-20. I'm glad we didn't have to play 5 minutes longer. Coach Creel, when we met to exchange film, told me, and I knew him from clinics, he said, Coach Hughes, we don't have any black players. And I said, that's okay. They were a little apprehensive about coming into our stadium with our fully integrated football team. And he said, however, I do have one black kid on the B team. And he promised to bring him. And I think he did. So he had him dressed up. I'm just teasing you. We got ready to play, and I'm getting this secondhand because I was still in the dressing room. I think I was throwing up somewhere. When Lakeside came onto the field, and they came on from the Jackson Street gate, they had a tradition that, as far as I know, we didn't know about. Coach Stutter, we didn't know what they were planning. They had a tradition of their students lining up to make a tunnel for their players to come on the field. It's fine. But at that point, just a few minutes before the game, when the Lakeside team got ready to come on the field, the Lakeside students climbed over the fence and went running down to the Jackson Street gate. Their tradition. Our student body, who were pumped, we're hosting a state championship. Our student body thought, well, hell, that seems like a pretty good tradition. And they started over the fence, right, Coach Studdard? I don't know how in the world Coach Studdard and the other people who were responsible for our crowd kept them or got them back in the student body or sat on them until we could play. But they felt like if it was good for Lakeside, by golly, it ought to be good for us too. I was extremely proud, naturally, because we won the game. I was proud because it was a championship game, the way championship games should be. I was proud of our football team. I was proud of our students, our fans. I was proud of Thomasville because we hosted a championship team, a championship game in much greater fashion than our opponents the year before. I think it's remarkable that those guys keep getting together. It's a good sign of how tight the bond was with those 73 players, 74 players, and I've said publicly, if we hadn't come close in 72, I don't believe we would have made it in 73 and 74. All right, thanks for putting up with me. Thanks for being here today. Lillian and I have always thought Thomasville was a special sort of community. Your presence here today helps to keep it a special community for a lot of people for whom it might not be otherwise. So I'm delighted you're here. I'm looking forward to the auction, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. Thank you.